Today I'm going to walk you through my refactoring of my conveyor belt system, as well as telling you how I managed to implement the splitters that you're seeing here in the center. So for starters, I decided to move away from how I did my system in the past and move to a more modular system that has some of these key nodes. The first, I would say, is this direction controller that I have. This direction controller is able to signal to other nodes and keep in track the two direction. So for the conveyors that only go in one direction, just need one direction, and for the splitters, it's able to handle multiple directions. The direction controller is able to rotate if it needs to. It sets the direction and it signals out when its direction changes so that any other Area 2Ds that have connected to it can keep track of that. The only node I have at the moment that is specifically looking at the direction controllers from the outside is for the one directional belts. I have this from direction controller that spawns a bunch of other Area 2D nodes to look in the various directions and look at which direction the nearby conveyors are pointing in order to know what the from direction for the conveyors are. And it just keeps track and connects to that direction's changed signal. Another very important thing is this conveyor inventory system. This is an Area 2D that keeps track of the items themselves and moves them. It handles whether or not it's allowed to accept another item or it passes along the item that it is currently using. And it has this signal item held that gets emitted to the parent when it's ready to pass along the item to another conveyor. The conveyor detectors are what's actually looking at the conveyor inventories, and they're doing so with this other conveyor detector node that I have here, which is another Area 2D that just specifies, is this a conveyor inventory, and then keeps track of the conveyor inventory, as well as being able to check if the conveyor inventory is able to receive an item. And then when the conveyor detector is asked to check whether or not any of the nearby conveyors that it is checking can accept an item, it just goes through its detectors and checks. Then I'm able to do a node 2D to implement the different types of belts, making use of all of the logic from the parent or from the children nodes. So the parent is able to look at the from direction controller and determine what direction it needs to set itself to and use that to set the sprite. This main node is also looking at the direction controller direction change signal and is able to update its own direction, which will also set the conveyor detector's direction as well, so that we make sure that we're looking for inventories in the correct direction that we care about. And because I have this system set up very modularly, I was easily able to set up a splitter using these same nodes and connecting to the same signals. The main difference here is that determining what the from direction for a splitter is not as complicated because we don't care about which direction the other conveyors around it are pointing. Another interesting thing about the way that I set up the system is currently I have the splitters functioning in all three directions. So it is coming from one direction and is pointing in all three as we were shown at the beginning. But because of the modularity of the system, I could easily implement a splitter that only goes off in two directions. Using these same direction controllers and conveyor inventories, I was easily able to set up a trash. It only needs a conveyor inventory, which it then will just offload the item. And I was also able to create a generator using some of these same nodes. Just a little bit different logic for what that happen when we have an item ready to go. I will leave a GitHub link in the description so that you can take a look around it for all the specifics that I did not go over in granular detail. Let me know if you have any questions.